Okay, so I think we will start. People can still join in while we begin. So hello, everyone. My name is Diana Bashur. I'm Bien's secretary. I hope you've been enjoying the Congress. I myself also weren't able to be in Seoul, unfortunately. But I think we've been having a quite rich and diverse Congress. I'm also a researcher on basic income. I'm looking at this tool and its applicability for peace building, so for countries coming out of conflict. So I'm very much looking forward to this session, which addresses issues very close to those that I'm interested in. So again, this is concurrent session 25 on basic income inequality and poverty. Thank you for joining us. We have 3 presentations. I will ask each to be 15 minutes, so that we have time for a 30-minute discussion. I'll briefly present each of the speakers and then give them the floor. So let's start with Verena, if that's fine. So Verena Löffler works as a research associate at the Center of Interdisciplinary Economics at the University of Münster in Germany. As a PhD candidate, she is interested in social policy issues specifically related to basic income, homelessness, and care work. So Verena, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Diana, and thank you all for joining this session. I'm very happy to be able to present at this renowned conference. And as you've already read, let me just do this in full screen and start. The working title of the article that I want to present to you today is Basic Income and Homelessness, Improving the Situation of the Least Advantaged, ? And I will follow the basic income definition of Van Baarles and Van der Boort, namely that basic income is a universal, obligation-free and individual payment that is paid out regularly. And the field of interest, as I said, is the effect of basic income and homelessness, with the specific research question, how a basic income introduction would affect the living situation of homeless individuals. And I will specifically look at the case of Germany. Let me first introduce to you 3 ideas of how or why a basic income is just or should be introduced. All 3 ideas that I want to present to you are based on the assumption that a societal structure should improve the situation of those who are less fortunate. And this is the so-called maximum distribution rule, which is based on the difference principle articulated by Rawls. And these ideas that I will present, they focus in the idea on what kind of social good should be distributed accordingly. So the first that I identify is the idea of Van Baarles, the real libertarian idea that argues that in a society, opportunities should be distributed according to improve the situation of the worst off. And the core values of the real libertarians are freedom and neutrality. And in a monetary society, they argue that opportunities are equivalent to income, and that income should be distributed to improve the situation of those who are least advantaged with the help of a basic income. The second school are the liberal egalitarians. They draw more heavily on Rawls' theory. In Rawls' difference principle, he states that the maximum distribution rule should apply to an index of social goods encompassing income, wealth, and self-respect. And in this context, he emphasizes that self-respect is one of the most important goods. And while Rawls does not favor a basic income as a means to maximum self-respect, other authors do. They argue that self-respect is based on individual success and on communal recognition, and both of these are enabled most effectively by a basic income. And the last school that I want to introduce very shortly is the Republican school of thought. which is mostly connected to Philip Petit, but also other authors. And these Republicans argue in favor of a basic income because it would enable non-domination by the state on the vertical axis and by fellow citizens or residents on the horizontal axis. And I argue that enabling non-domination for all is basically equivalent to transferring power to the least advantaged. And therefore, in all the three schools, or to sum up all the three schools, there are three ways to argue in favor of a basic income that I identify. And it is argued that a basic income is just because it satisfies the maximum distribution rule in terms of income, self-respect, or power, depending on the respective school of thought that I have presented. In the next section, I want to give some more information on the situation of homeless individuals living in Germany. Homelessness in this context is defined as lacking access to adequate housing, and this includes living on the street and living with acquaintances or in shelter. And in Germany specifically, there was the first national count of homeless individuals belonging to the first and the second category, so living on the street and living with acquaintances or in shelters. And it was found that more than 250,000 individuals are homeless in Germany, and that this phenomenon is most prevalent in metropolitan regions, and that homeless individuals suffer from physical and mental problems. Also, it is found that homelessness is a common symptom of a rather heterogeneous group. 2/3 of all homeless individuals are male, only 1/3 female, 2% diverse. And there are more families and minors who live in shelters, more men than women who live on the street, and more women than men who live with acquaintances. And according to citizenship, more non-German residents live in shelters, more German citizens on the streets and with acquaintances. The most prevalent reason of being homelessness in Germany is not being able to pay the rent. In combination with that, the complexity of German bureaucracy bears the risk of losing entitlements to social welfare, and that in turn increases the risk of eviction. Increasing rents and less accommodation options for low-income individuals, particularly in metropolitan areas, aggravate these problems. And further risks are moving, for example, due to separation, due to migrating, or psychological problems. And these risks increase in severity when there's no social net supporting individuals to face the main challenges. One reason for the persistence of homelessness is that the social welfare structure in Germany is argued to rather administrate homelessness than fight its causes. And there is also a perceived mismatch between existing social policies and individual needs. And the situation is made more difficult by the heterogeneity of homeless individuals. Also, the complexity of German bureaucracy aggravates chances to get help that is needed. And finally, homelessness is a long-term phenomenon, and therefore some individuals have problems after a while, have problems living behind closed doors because it causes them a feeling of being trapped. And there are some other behavioral adaptations that lead to the persistence of the phenomenon. Now, to sum up, we have 250,000 people living homeless in Germany, and they live in precarious conditions. And this emphasizes the necessity of discussing basic income effects on this group, possible basic income effects. So now, based on the presented information on homelessness, I want to first tell you how the current social assistance system works. The social assistance system that has been introduced this year in Germany is the so-called Bürgergeld, which is up to 500 euros per month, in addition to covering of rent and everything. And the legal requirements that we have to get this Bürgergeld is that you're at least 15 years old, you're living legally in Germany, you're fit for employment, and your income is below the minimum subsistence level. And there are also some administrative requirements. You need to have personal identification. You need to have a registered address and the bank account where the money is transferred to. And if you do not comply to other things like the willingness to work condition, or you don't show up to appointments, then it is possible to sanction this Bürgergeld with up to 30%. And what I want to look at now is how a basic income as a replacement for this Bürgergeld, so rest of the structure would be intact in my thought experiment, how replacing Bürgergeld with basic income would affect the living situation of homeless individuals. According to the theories that I just presented, we have to identify homeless individuals as least advantaged first. In terms of the social good index that I have identified, that means in terms of income, self-respect, and power, and then look how income, self-respect, and power of homeless individuals is affected by a basic income. How would a basic income affect income of homeless individuals? So first, let's have a look if they are least advantaged in Germany. And the study says that 35% of homeless individuals do not have any income, so they do not have access to the social assistance of Bürgergeld that I have just introduced. And therefore, we can say that they are the least, that this is the least advantaged group. They only get their income from begging or from the collection of bottle deposits, which is introduced in Germany, for those who do not know. And how would a basic income change this situation? A basic income would be more salient. Therefore, we would reduce the complexity of the German bureaucracy, which is one reason for persisting homelessness and for for not being able to get social assistance. We do not have a means test, also a reduction of complexity due to basic income. The unconditionality would foreclose the income reduction due to sanctions, and the individuality would cause less financial dependence that results from cohabiting. So therefore, but we have to say, if you recall, homelessness in Germany is a problem that is most prevalent in metropolitan areas, and there 500 euros is not enough to pay rent, mostly. It's especially in the big cities, it's more expensive. So it's not enough to prevent the evictions due to rental areas. Alternatively, a basic income could be higher, so 60% of median income, which is the official poverty line, which would be 1,250 euros per month, which is a lot more. Then we have the financial issue again, which I do not want to discuss at this point. But we would still have some administrative obstacles. So it would still be necessary to have identification. Not all homeless individuals possess identification. And on a second point, if you get the basic income at one point in the month and you get it all at once, then it is quite risky if you cannot secure it, if you live on the street, if you do not have a bank account where you can deposit the money. So that would would increase vulnerability of homeless individuals, and we still would not know what to do about homeless individuals without any identification or with illegal non-German residents that also do not possess German identification. How would basic income affect self-respect of homeless individuals? First, are they the least advantaged group in Germany in terms of self-respect? Homeless individuals state in the studies that are present that they do not feel like a community. It's rather that they share this common symptom of homelessness, that they feel that this is a community that they belong to. It's not very trusting among each other. Then from a society perspective, we have studies that show that there's high prejudice in the German society facing homeless individuals. They are perceived as a financial burden. And therefore, I conclude that homeless individuals are in fact least advantaged in terms of self-respect, because they do not belong to a community and they are not, they do not conform to the normal biography in Germany and do not feel as they lead an individual successful life. If we introduced a basic income policy, then we would there would be no means test in comparison to the current Bürgergeld system, and it's mostly argued that this would be stigma relieving because everyone would get this payment, and it would not be like an extra additional cost that would be given to homeless individuals by society, but it is rather a right than a social benefit. There's a less financial dependency, which means that that homeless individuals are able to choose a community that is self-respect enhancing for them. There's a great paper accordingly by Catriona McKinnon that I've cited on another slide, I hope. And the problem that we would still have is the question of eligibility. There are two possible options to introduce basic income on a national level. One is residence-based, so only residents get a basic income. The other one is citizenship-based, so only citizens who live on the territory get a basic income. If we introduce a residence-based basic income, then we have a coverage problem. If there's missing identification, as I've already explained, we have the problem of double payments. If we introduce only a citizenship,
Verena, sorry, could you please wrap up? We're almost.
Yes, of course. Sorry, yes, such a short time. We would have the dual file society, and let me just skip to the concluding slide. Then, unfortunately, I could not discuss the power one more in more detail. Yes, so it is summarized that homeless individuals wish for access to housing, a simplified bureaucracy, and the re-establishment of their human dignity, and basic income could support this by increasing income if the amount is sufficient. It could also lead to less homelessness or decrease the persistence, and it could increase autonomy and enable the choice of self-respect enhancing community. However, also more power-facing state bureaucracy. But violence, which is one point of the power argument, by fellow residents might persist or even increase. And it is relevant to discuss this point, in my opinion. We do have administrative obstacles, and it is still discussable how illegal non-German residents and minors are affected by a basic income. And I think there is a necessity of more empirical research, like in Denver right now by Westbrook, or interview studies with homeless individuals discussing this point. So I'm really sorry that I stretched the time. I sometimes get lost in the topic, and I'm very happy to hear your questions and comments afterwards.
No worries at all. You were actually just on time. So thank you for sticking with the time. Are there any pressing questions to Verena before we move to the next speaker? Otherwise, we could collect all the questions towards the end. Is there any question that anyone would like to raise? No? Okay. So let us move to the second presentation by Konrad and Marek. I'll introduce both speakers briefly. So Marek is a PhD candidate at the University of Warsaw in legal sciences, constitutional law specialization. He's doing his doctorate thesis about constitutional challenges to universal basic income, especially in illiberal democracies. He defended his master's thesis on jurisprudence of the Polish Constitutional Court in the field of social security. He's interested in constitutionalism, democracy, and theory and philosophy of law. On a daily basis, beyond students teaching, he works in a law firm. Thank you for joining us, Marek. Konrad is also a PhD candidate at the University of Warsaw in legal sciences, constitutional law specialization. He holds a bachelor's degree in Greek philosophy. His main research interests are judicial review and judicial activism. His doctoral dissertation is on judicial review in Greece. He works at the General Council of the Republic of Poland. Thank you both. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Diana. Hello, everyone. Due to some inconveniences in Konrad's house, I will make the entire presentation on my own. Nevertheless, I thank Konrad for his support. So let me launch our presentation now. Okay, is it visible for everyone? Okay, so let's go. And give me a second. Okay. On the first slide, you can see a map.
Sorry,
with,
Mark. Maybe
yeah.
you can just maximize, like, put the slide view so we can see.
Yeah, of course. Is it okay? Okay, is it visible? Yeah, okay. So on the first slide,
sorry, we have the presenter view. You need to click on.
Okay, wait a second. This one?
No, maybe the one to the right.
Okay, sorry for this inconveniences, but okay, so maybe once again, here and here. And now?
Can you just click on the icon on the bottom next to the volume? There's an icon on your right side.
Yeah.
Yeah, just where your mouse is.
Okay. Because I now have the slides, but I don't know how to maximize this. Do you see our presentation or not?
Okay, go ahead. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, and sorry, but I don't know what to do. Okay, so on the first slide, you can see a map of inequalities in the world, and we would like to introduce our presentation by said that only 10% of people in the world have the most have a lot of word resources. Wait a second, please, because I have a technical problem. Sorry for that. Wait a second, please. Wait a second. Okay. Sorry for that. As I said before, the richest 10% of people possess half of the global income. It should be noted also that in the hands of the poorest 50% of the population, there is about only 10% of global income. The particular changes of modernity, which we have been witnessing for a few last years, have brought us a new wave of interest in solutions that could bring a relevant answer to the lack of income security in society. The report of the Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty and Human Rights, Philip Alston, who is also interested in universal basic income, dated on 2017, highlights that at the moment, the idea of universal basic income is not normally brought up in a human rights context, but, as Alston says, human rights are not only about torture or killings. Especially as a result of the pandemic, it turned out that modern social support system built on the classic concept of welfare state, which interferes in an extremely intrusive way in the lives of its beneficiaries and meticulously controls both the conditions for obtaining benefits, for example, as Verena said before, and the way that benefits are used are not sufficient and do not respond to economic citizens' needs. It could also be said, although for some it's not enough, that the existing social policy tools were created for typical times. Today, times are no longer typical. Therefore, the concept of UB, which has been discussed many times, has been returned to. Due to the fact that this conference is directly devoted to UB, there is no need for detailed analysis for UB. And Verena did the analysis, so you know everything, almost everything about UB, so go on. However, it is worth introducing the basic income models, which have been discussed in the literature and partly practiced in pilot programs. Particular attention should be paid to several basic models, basic incomes models distinguished by Alston: a bonus basic income, a partial basic income, a supplemental basic income, and the full basic income. There are also many derivatives of the discussed concept, such as participatory income, etc. But each of the variation of UB will affect the principle of equality in a different way. This is confirmed by case studies, which will be discussed in a while, and you see a first example of case study from Canada. Here I will briefly introduce this table in a moment. The aim of full basic income model, which is mostly interesting because this is UB par excellence. Generally speaking, the aim of this model is to replace the welfare state and to eliminate other social programs. As Charles Murray states, replacing the welfare state by basic income would restore the community to its place as the locus within which human needs must be met, and the effects could be profound. It should be noted that the most contemporary concepts are far from recognizing the UB as a sufficient replacement for the modern welfare state in its entirety. For example, Alston, in mentioned report, indicates that basic income model that replaces existing social support could have seriously negative effect on the poor. And report of the International Labour Organization says the same. The basic problems associated with this concept are based on the abstraction from the individual needs of individuals, high economic and social costs, as well as the lack of sufficient legitimacy. Undoubtedly, this can be reduced, among others, to the implementation of the UB and the principle of equality. This principle of equality must be considered in a multidimensional way in this case. First of all, attention should be paid to whether full basic income will bring the state closer to the implementation of the principle of equality or away from the implementation of this principle. And second, whether universal basic income must mean universality par excellence, or everyone equally will mean real equality. The problem raised a moment ago also resounds on the occasion of pilot projects, for example, in Finland and Canada. In preparation for UB in Finland, it was decided that partial basic income would be more favorable than full basic income, as the latter would be too costly and insufficiently encouraging to take up professional activity. Finally, after the pilot in 2017-2018, it turned out that the project didn't do much to encourage recipients into work, but did improve their mental well-being, confidence, and life satisfaction. What is even more interesting, and what you can see in the table on the slide, simulations conducted in Canada showed that introduction of full basic income as a replacement for existing social programs would lead to a significant increase in the poverty rate. At the same time, it was examined that adding UB to existing programs would have a positive social impact, but would be too costly. Particular attention should be paid to the conclusion of a Canadian report that UB would not help all groups equally. In this context, it is worth paying attention to the bill currently being proceeded by Canadian Parliament, according to which there must be developed a national framework for UB for persons over the age of 17, but at the same time, this framework must include measures to ensure that the implementation of UB doesn't result in a decrease in services of benefits meant to meet an individual's exceptional needs related to health or disability. So once again, not full basic income. At this point, it should be noted that the state, and especially democratic state, ruled by law, has certain obligation towards individual. Naturally, these duties include ensuring economic security. However, This obligation cannot be separated from the special obligations directed towards above average vulnerable groups, such as Verena said before, homeless people, disabled, orphans, single mothers, veterans, seniors, and many, many others. State action should therefore be particularly adapted to the challenges and obstacles faced by vulnerable and disadvantaged groups. Given that many human characteristics, as well as features of the environment in which a person lives and grows, inevitably affects his ability to exercise both civil and political rights and social rights, it should be pointed out that social policy cannot abstract from differences between individuals. This raises a question of what equality means in the context of UB. The answer to this question must lead us to the UB's function of providing a guaranteed floor. Is the guaranteed floor for everyone the same? The Declaration of Principles on Equality, a part of the declaration you see here on the slide, allows defining the principle of equality as you see here in 5 points. Although that is purely a form of agreement among prominent NGOs, it is claimed to be the current international understanding of principle of equality, and is also recognized by Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. But you have to know that the very outset of the declaration, it was pointed out that equal treatment as an aspect of equality is not equivalent to identical treatment. To realize full and effective equality, it is necessary to treat people differently according to their different circumstances, to assert their equal worth and enhance their capabilities to participate in society and equals. It is therefore necessary to answer the question of how to confirm the truth of Malcolm Torres' words that for a variety of reasons, a UB would be make a significant contribution to reducing the level of inequality in our society. The nature of the relationship of the UB to the principle of equality, as well as to the other principles of law, is closely related not only to the adopted model of UB, so a full basic income, partial basic income, supplemental, and so on and so forth, but also to the concrete implementation of this particular model in practice. For example, what Verena mentioned before, whether it should be citizen-based or resident-based, it is also intertwined with principle of equality. The introduction of UB is a complete reorganization both of society and the basic principles of modern constitutionalism. The introduction of UB may result in an abandonment of the constitutional principle of equality. Although at first glance this program means the practical implementation of equality, the reality may be quite different. Because social justice and economic security are of great importance for maintaining social order and peace. Undoubtedly, UB, which stably ensures the maintenance of existential foundation of citizens, must give citizens a sense of economic security and equal treatment. So it must be socially acceptable, especially without this element, without social acceptance, it will not be recognized as an element of social justice. To add to this, the effective exercise of human freedoms and rights depends on ensuring that a given person has a minimum subsistence level commensurate with the community in which he or she lives. It should be borne in mind that the constitutional provisions that explicitly impose on public authorities the obligation to provide special protection to specific entities, which I said before. But for it is about more than the just minimum needs, such as access to healthy water, food, housing, and livelihoods. It is about something much more important, namely ensuring a relative minimum of economic security so that the average citizen is in a situation that will be given a chance to effectively put to use his freedoms and rights, not only social rights, but also political and citizen rights, because it is everything intertwined with each other. And to sum up everything and to go on for a while to Poland, different models of UBI can ensure a provision of protection to specific social groups that require it. Verena mentioned homeless people. Me with Konrad will mention children. It seems that the limit of acceptability of UBI is the financial capacity of the state. In particular, this program cannot be financed by incurring public debt. This problem is not just academic, because in Poland in 2015, benefit similar to UBI was introduced. The populist ruling party, Law and Justice in Poland, has introduced a benefit 500 plus, something about $125 for every second child. And from July 2019, also for the first child. Currently, work is underway to increase the benefit to around $200. And the reason, again, is elections. However, it turns out that the public's original enthusiasm for the program has dropped significantly. The reasons are actually three. First, other benefits have not been eliminated, but they have remained unchanged for almost 8 years, for example, for disabled people. Second, the program has led to an increase in the fiscal burden, what you see on the slide. And the third and finally, the program is being financed through a debt because actually the budget deficit is 92 billion of zlotys, and 1 zloty is something as you see on the slide. So to sum up, without any doubt, the concept of UBI is a relevant constitutional issue. However, it is economic science and public finance that will have to decide whether the concept of UBI is realistic or utopian. UBI has to become a stable system that guarantees economic security for the citizens. Nevertheless, UBI cannot become an economic perpetuum mobile. So, in a first case, where UBI become a stable system, UBI would be universal basically. But in the second case, where UBI will be perpetuum mobile, UBI would be utopian basic income. Thank you so much, and sorry for all inconveniences.
Thank you very much, Marek. Very interesting presentation on an interesting topic. Are there any questions for Marek before we head to our third speaker? Okay, we don't have a very big audience. In fact, we might have just one person. So sorry about that. Alex is our next speaker. He has a background in computer science with a graduate degree in economic sustainability and an executive MBA. He's currently studying for his PhD in economics in the area of social enterprises. With almost 25 years in corporate America, he founded Children Aid and Development 20 years ago to create a network of people helping people. Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good morning. It's almost 5 o'clock here in Los Angeles. So we're on many time zones. And let's see if I can get this again to, you see my screen, but probably you see the other slides, right? You don't see it in presentation mode. And I should do a Shift F5. And that, okay, can you see my screen properly?
It's probably uploading. Yeah, now it's working. Go ahead.
Okay, okay. Okay, wonderful, thank you. So again, great presentations, and some of the topics here, some ideas, it's like I'm preaching to the choir, so I'm gonna be quick and skip some of the things that we already know. Again, this is my background. It's not that important. I'd like to say that I have worked in all 3 sectors, public, private, and voluntary sectors. And currently, we're building a social enterprise in rural Romania because I'm trying to prove the concept. And 15 years ago, we started something that we call the scholarship program, but it turned out to be a universal basic income program. And I have not seen, and I'm not saying with arrogance or anything, it's just for the sake of the experiment. I have not seen a longer program that is run by a non-profit organization, non-governmental organization in the world yet. our program is rather small, but the fact that it has been running for so long, it allowed us to get some essential data about the benefits of universal basic income. Of the research hypothesis, and by the way, I'm a PhD candidate as well, and I'm trying to look at it from two perspectives: the practitioner and, of course, the scholar. So we're trying to eradicate poverty, like everybody else, and we're trying to do interventions in monetary and non-monetary areas, but we're trying to leverage all the types of capital. Everybody obviously is looking in this day and age at the financial capital and judging it as a measure of success. You can increase your financial capital, you're very successful, and nobody is asking you any more questions. But there are other forms of capital that we got to talk about, obviously, and we're trying to create a viable model to show that if we invest in several forms of capital, we can get better results than focusing only on the financial capital. I have a quick agenda, and our focus was on rural Romania, where our organization started some projects probably 20 years ago. And of course, as everybody knows, Eastern Europe, people are migrating towards richer countries without understanding financial opportunities and all sorts of opportunities in their backyard at home. Provided they have the proper financial education. Obviously, there's multidimensional poverty in the world, and I have seen it firsthand in many countries that I have visited. And you have the definition of multidimensional poverty that takes into consideration the non-monetary aspects and the monetary aspects, which is, of course, the per capita income below, well, 65 dollars, 60 euros per month. And if you're deprived of the three social rights at the per capita income, that is called extreme multidimensional poverty. And 1.2 billion people are in multidimensional poverty, which is a huge number. And half of them are children under 18 years of age. So there's some scary numbers. And alongside with that, there's a stigma on poverty, which we'll be talking about a bit later. Our framework for study, this southwestern region is the second poorest region of Romania, and people are fleeing this region 3 times faster than people in other regions of Romania, like average level. So it's 463 decrease of the population compared to 1.7. The problem is that you have the new orphans. One parent goes to Spain, one parent goes to Italy. They get remarried, and the kids are staying at the countryside with grandparents or neighbors, and they do not even see their parents anymore. And those parents are alive. They don't care for their kids left in Romania, and you have a new generation of orphans. And these people will be paying our retirement benefits a few decades from now. So again, a scary number to me. 23.8% of Romanian population below poverty line. This number is correct, but I'm not sure if this is because some of them not reporting benefits or not. Anyway, there are 4 types of poverty that are considered in the world. Anyway, you can slice it and dice it any way you want. But if you look at occasionally poor, there are people who are just one natural catastrophe away from becoming poor, like a mudslide, like an earthquake, etc. The cyclically poor, those are akin to the people in Romania who depend on agriculture. At harvest time, you're doing well, and the rest of the year, you're not doing well because you don't have any more resources. And now we're talking about the usually poor and the always poor. The usually poor, they're people who are always poor, but one person in the family gets a job and lifts them out of poverty temporarily. And the always poor, obviously, it's people who are always poor. I like to look at poverty from the lens of Amartya Sen, Nobel laureate. Amartya Sen that says, who says poverty is deprivation of basic capabilities. And because of that, we like to change the paradigm. It's not the poor, it's just people in need, and we're trying to fulfill a need. And this is the map of universal basic income in the world. Unfortunately, the only country who has implemented a full UBI program is Iran in green. And I know firsthand that a lot of recipients of this program in Iran are just staying in their huts and smoking opium without real participation in the society. So this is, to me, this is not doing a service to the universal basic income. And like my colleague talked about the Finnish program, not a great success in my view. We can do much better. The point is we can do much better. Now, this is the definition from Basic Income Earth Network of UBI. And I will try to make some adjustments, at least in my mind. Again, here we can do better. Not only to every adult citizen paid, but also to children or some categories and some households and all that. And we can talk about this during the discussions. But what we started looking at was, okay, what's for-profit, what's non-profit, what's the line between for-profit and non-profit? What's the old concept of oikonomia, Aristotelian concept, which is the managing the household, good management of the household, and the krematische, which is making money for the sake of money. And I believe that making money is not something bad or evil, but what do you do with the profits? How do you invest the profits? Do you invest the profits in quote unquote shareholders or only yourself, but without caring of others? Or you can use parts of the profit or all of it and invest it in other topics, other worthy causes. And because of that, obviously, there's not only the financial capital that we're looking at, and you have the international IRC. I have a little lapsus here, and International Integrated Reporting Council, okay, distinguishes between 6 capitals that you see on the screen. Not only the financial capital, you have Nobel Prize laureate Eline Ostrom. She distinguishes between 3 different capitals. She considers the natural capital very much important. Basically, you have multiple capitals, you have multiple types of wealth, you have multiple opportunities. And to me, wealth is the judicious allocation of all types of capital, not just the financial capital. And certain capitals are decreased with use, like the financial capital, but certain capitals are increased through use, intellectual capital. The more you use our intelligence, the better we become. So we chose as methodology intervention research because we looked at the problem from a practical and theoretical perspective, and we work in collaboration, the researchers and the practitioners. And what we saw through the implementation of this universal basic income program, high levels of physical, mental, emotional health, the trust went really up, and not even the trust in themselves, but the trust in other institutions and government, which is important in this day and age. Goal setting, goal reaching, obviously, and a lot of other progress in many areas with the final goal of financial stability and the financial sustainability. And to us, this is the measure of someone staying in the program versus someone getting out of the program. They reach financial stability, and every single of our recipients in our program has reached financial stability at the time of getting out of the program. And of course, the words of founder of social psychology, Kurt Lewin, you cannot understand the system until you try to change it. And everybody here in this room, we try to change the system for better. And I love this. Now, we looked at the need when we defined our basic income, and of course, refine afterwards the basic income program. What are the needs to be fulfilled? How and when is the need fulfilled? What happens? And you were talking about different needs, different people having different needs. And what happens if those needs change, like it's a medical emergency during the program? If you give the same amount of money to people, it means that you do not assess their needs properly. And of course, you have to assess progress during the program, how fast you meet the needs of the people. And of course, it's not only throwing money at people, you have to build up the emotional sustainability, you have to build up the psychological factors and all that. And for me, as a computer engineer by trade, what's the measure of success? When are the needs completely met? And if it's self-sustainable or not. So we measure the impact, the individual impact, third-party impact. So how the person sees themselves, how their friends and peers and family see them through the basic program, to the basic income program, and what's the societal impact? Because when people become sustainable, they pay taxes, they derive a passive income, they have a disposable income, they volunteer, they do charitable endeavors, they're really assets for society. And especially from the physical, emotional, and mental health, which is a big problem everywhere in the world, and I see it here in the United States as well. And increased stress levels, that's very important. So I'm just bringing three case studies here. Christian, Laura, Gabriel. We took them in the program when they were 13, 14, and 15 years old, respectively. And we measured levels of, a baseline. We got a baseline in trust, health, goals, extracurricular activities, school, financial. They were really good at school. They were applying themselves. And that was a positive factor that we considered in getting them in the Universal Basic Income Program. And we really trusted them, and that paid off. And a decade later, we have Christian. He's a graduate of computer science school. He's from a very vulnerable area, Roma population, or Gypsy, how it's known. And currently he works for United Nations, actually, and he's happily married. He invited me to his wedding, by the way, and he has a disposable income. He has a passive income. He's doing really well financially, and he's sustainable. Laurel, she is actually not only a graduate of a prestigious business school in Romania. She is an Olympian. She's part of the Olympic team, Romanian Olympic team for sharp shooting. And she's a European record holder. She's a national record holder. She has won gold medals at the World Championships all over the world with sharpshooting. And we have Gabriel, who's a law school graduate. He was, again, deemed at risk. He might not have finished high school. And now he's a law school graduate, and he's clerking for a judge in Romania, in Transylvania. And interesting enough, he told me yesterday, he's out of the program. They're out of this program, but we keep in touch. He told me yesterday that 6 months from now, he will get married. So these people are really assets to societies. And growing the 6 capitals, not only the financial one, has tangible effects, has intangible benefits. And of course, it's something that you can measure, like physical health and school grades and reaching their goals and financial stability and everything. But you cannot really measure the mental health with the way it's measured by society, right? But you see emotional stability. You see how this plays in them reaching their goals, and understanding where they are, where they started in the program, and where they are right now, and how can they improve themselves. And then all this, you can translate them, since of course money is just an energy. You can translate them in financial benefits, and they can become financially sustainable. So what I'm trying to do is to remove the stigma of poverty, because universal basic income is not an experiment. We're talking about people's lives, and we have to do it right. It's a long-term endeavor. We address people's needs, and they should be fulfilled. And we should develop within them inner structures that allow them to be autonomous.
I will ask you to wrap up, please.
I'm wrapping up, 60 seconds. And they don't have to rely indefinitely on outside help. It's a defined point in time when they start and when they end. So again, different people, different needs. You have to do a careful assessment, keep track of the growing needs of individual and varying. And I believe we can include family structures, household, all citizens, and we can alter this amount, not just set a certain amount and go with that one. So to me, we should do a universal well-being income, not a universal basic income. And with that, I am done. This is the literature, and I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex, for sticking also with the time. Excellent. So I'll open now the floor for questions to the three speakers. Fortunately, we don't have a big audience. Perhaps now two.
That's questions among themselves, ourselves.
Exactly.
So if I may, Diana, I have a question for Alex.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for interesting presentation, not only Alex, but Verena also. But I have a question for Alex, because you mentioned that UB should be implemented until needs are fulfilled. And I'd like to ask you whether UB is supposed to be a program checked from time to time in terms of effects, whether these needs are fulfilled, or it should be a generational program without this time-to-time check. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I had a feeling this type of question will arise. Here's the thing: we're talking about universal basic income programs at national level. Well, I think it's too early for that, because we have to start UBI programs at grassroots level. We have to start small. Like I would like to, if I have, let's say, if I have $1 billion, I don't think I could get this program that we're running right now with 20, 25, 30 people and make it global, because we need to develop inner structures in people so they understand why they're in the program and how they can fulfill their needs, how their needs are fulfilled. I liked both your presentations, and you were talking about needs at general level, at national level, and it's very hard for me when I saw Verena's presentation. I understood it is very hard for a country to get everybody and to get everybody out of poverty at once. And this was something that Muhammad Yunus tried with Grameen Bank at some point in time. If you remember, he's a Nobel Prize laureate, and he had this small grassroots program that was giving money to people in Bangladesh, I believe, and getting themselves out of poverty, because it was like a network of people getting money, and then someone else would get paid. You're familiar probably with this concept. And then they tried to take it global or national level, and it failed, because I think we should build structures in place to get it from local level to national level. Long answer. I hope I answered your questions. If not, I can go for another hour. No, just kidding.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Verena, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, thank you also very much for the very interesting presentations. I have a question for Alex as well, just to get that right. So the program in Romania is to pay children a basic income in this specific area that you mentioned in South Romania?
We pay actually households. We involve their parents.
Okay.
We basically, at first, we tried to keep children in school, but we had to involve the parents, and they had to understand why we're doing this. It's not a handout. We framed it as a merit scholarship. And if an organization from United States comes to a remote village and takes a kid and says, well, you've been selected for a merit scholarship, everybody feels they have invested in them. It's building trust, and it's giving them a boost of confidence. So that's how we framed it. But parents, I found out parents, if they have 3 children, they know exactly how, if they understand the purpose of the basic income, they know exactly how to allocate those resources. It wasn't up to us to tell them this child gets $100 a month, this child gets 120. They were able to properly allocate the resources and free up some of their income, because they weren't without income at all, but they had a meager income. And they were able to, let's say, build a bathroom that, you know, indoors plumbing, get indoors plumbing, okay, for the kids, that so they improve their hygiene, or they could get access to healthcare. So there were many benefits, because we worked with them in a partnership, and they understood there's just extra income that helps them get through a rough patch, or through problems they have currently in life, and got them better. So basically the 4 levels of poverty, you know, we tried to push that level up to get them above that, and they were able to function autonomously, more or less. And
were the households selected randomly, or is it paid to all households in this region?
A good question. Actually, the program started at the initiative of a teacher. We had an English teacher in a remote village, and she came to me because we were doing other programs in the area. They said, "Can you give these kids some money, because they won't be able to finish high school?" And we started with the 2 kids of Roma origin, and the kid Christian was one of them, who works for United Nations. And after that, we expanded, but we get actually the characterization, and we get advice from you know, the local priest, from teachers, from it's like a community based, and that helps because they trust each other and they know each other. So if someone gets in the program, it has a whole community supporting them, at least emotionally. So it's not necessarily random. It's random in a sense, but they are recommended by the community, and that helps with everybody building trust. Trust is a big issue, right, when you talk about money. So we get recommendations, but it's not everybody. Okay. We don't do it indiscriminately, because I don't think we can at this time.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was just wondering, because your stories sound great, and congratulations to these successes, but then they are probably a bit, they're not really generalizable in the way that there might be a bit of a selection bias in that regard. Did I get that right?
Right. Or you can do it with larger bureaucratic system, let's say that, like if you want to do it for the homeless, there should be a lot of people who can assess the needs of the people, and we should involve other structures, again, psychology, psychiatry, building health structures, but building emotional structures in place. So and that's probably, as you saw, a problem in homelessness. We have a lot of homeless people in Los Angeles here. It's a huge problem. And unless you build those emotional structures, inner structures, you cannot throw money at people, because they don't understand the value of money. So it has to be tackled in many, from many angles. I think we can do that, but it takes time. We should keep in touch. I love both your presentations. We should definitely keep in touch after this.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I saw there's a question in the chat for me. If you're fine with it, Diana, then I would.
Of course.
Answer that. Go ahead. Yes. So in the discussion that I do, it's a thought experiment, and I chose to discuss basic income only as monetary replacement. So all other structures would still be in place, because otherwise it would be too complex to discuss it in a thought experiment, I think. So it's really just this transition from paying people money, and they have to apply for it, and there is a means test, and they have to go to the to the job center to get it, and they need to be able to stick to appointments. They need to be able to make appointments, which is mostly online, and they don't even have a time a planner or a schedule or anything. So the whole administrative structure in Germany, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's huge. It's like very, very complex. Even for me, if I try to get anything out of our bureaucracy, I'm working a day on it. It's incredible. So it's for homeless individuals, we have to say it's really almost not possible, and that's why 30% of them do not get any social assistance, although they do have a right to this social assistance in Germany. And the idea is to make that less complex, but as I hope to have explained, there are still a lot of administrative obstacles that we have, even if we use this supposedly simple measure of basic income. Yes. I hope I answered the question.
If there's no other questions for now, maybe I can ask a few questions to the speakers. So first, Verena, I was wondering, what did you base the thought experiments or the assumed impact on? Where did you get a basis for this? Were there other studies you reviewed? Did you review the study done on homeless people receiving an unconditional cash transfer in Britain? I believe it was in London, if I'm not mistaken. And then maybe I'll address my second question after. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So most of the information that I presented on homeless individuals in Germany right now, I got from this. There are not that many studies, but I think about 4 or 5. I can call up the slides with the references again if you like. There is this one national count that has been taken place in January 2002, and they also asked qualitative questions about the problems of homelessness, the risks, how did the people get there, how do they feel, how is their mental health, how is their health in general. The theoretical arguments on basic income and the stigma relieving aspect, for example, as I said, there is a great paper by Catriona McKinnon who argues specifically on this stigma relieving point in favor of it, actually. It's and the one in London, the study. There's also a study in Denver that I will be evaluating. I haven't looked at it in detail yet, and I know that the study in London by Bregman, which has also been cited by Marek and Konrad, as far as I know, it is shown. I think they paid it to about 13 homeless individuals who lived in a very special territory in London. And they all got this unconditional fund, and the result was that they were able to ask for money, and they were not asked for what do you need it, how are you going to spend it. They just were given the money, and they did not know that there was a cap on this fund. So they were taking it out very responsibly, and after I think about 3 years or 5 years. I'm not sure right now. I have to look that up again. 3 or 5 years, 8 of these 13 homeless individuals were living in flats again and were able to live a successful life, which is, I think, a great success story. But I have to admit, and I don't know if you have any more information on that, Diana. I would be very glad to hear that, because I only have the Bregman book, which is it's a non-academic literature, I would say. It's academically founded, but it's popular literature. So I would be very interested if there are more information or more academic information on this specific study, if you have that. Since you were asking on that specifically, I was wondering. And the other project that I'm going to have a closer look is in Denver, which is on right now, as far as I know, where they pay a basic income to homeless individuals. So I'm not overly critical on that point. I just want to discuss the German case with its very specific administrative problems that we have right here. So that's my plan. It's also it's a working paper, and I'm happy. Thank you for the comment.
Great, thank you, Verena. I don't have very specific references to share, unfortunately, but I was wondering.
Okay.
I've heard a lot of about the extremely positive impact of that study, so I was wondering if you included it. Okay, I have a question for the second presenters, Marek and Konrad. So I think your questions on equals receiving the same amounts and unequals receiving different amounts is a very interesting one. So I don't know if you're assuming it in your presentation, but I'll ask it directly. Usually the basic income is assumed to be the same amount for everyone. And as Guy Standing would say, if people have specific needs or more costs than other people to generate income, let's say they have a disability or anything that prevents them to be income generating as others, then they would receive a compensation, but this is separate from the basic income. And as we've seen in pilots, the fact that it is the same amount that is received, that is given to everyone, is quite impactful in terms of the effects on solidarity, on social cohesion. And so I was wondering if you sort of looked at that specifically and what your thoughts are. Yeah, I'll stop here. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Diana, for your questions. Very interesting. We do believe that UB, of course, it depends on the UB model adapted, as I said before, because when you implement the full UB, fully universal basic income, which should replace all social protection system, we do believe that this universal UB in equal amount for all will not meet all needs, especially of people from special social groups as homeless people, orphans, and so on and so forth. Because, as I said before, UB must grant a floor, and as Alex said before, meet all of needs of people. And you know, different people have different needs, so UB must meet all these needs. But of course, when if UB will be built on the top of a social protection system, as in one of scenarios of Canada, which was mentioned on the last but one slide of our presentation, of course, it can be equal for all. But as we conclude our presentation, it depends on economic problems, not especially legal ones, because finally, legal question is whether it will be equal. But equality of such instruments must be discovered in such circumstances. So if UB is built on top of social structure system, and every other tools for social protection of vulnerable people will be still on agenda, it will be okay. I think so. But if UB replace all of social protection system, it can be a problem that that people with special needs won't meet all of these needs. So you know, this is my answer, and I hope I answer your question. If not,
so I think not many basic income advocates would say that a basic income system would be aimed to replace all social protection. The idea is that it will be a very specific country-specific tailoring of any program, and it's only certain elements such as unemployment benefits, things that are conditional on specific behavior, that would be replaced. But elements on related to what is the word? Being incapable or having a disability, this is separate, and this would be compensated because it's subject to a medical examination, for example. And so this would help to have to go more towards a basic income that is of equal value to everyone.
And of course, if I may add something, this is of course the problem of modeling of UB, but not only the problem of model, but also a problem of particular tools in a case of typical models. So, for example, you think about partial universal basic income, for example, and tools which you choose also has an impact on principle of equality. As we conclude our presentation, it is economic science and public finance that will have to decide whether the concept of UB is realistic or utopian. And then not only about equality and tools equality of amount of money, but also social justice and generational justice in case of budget debt of a state. So, of course, I agree with you that the most advocates of UB doesn't agree with full basic income. But as we said before, this is also a case of specific tools and specific context of implementing UB.
Thank you, Marek. Alex, do you
May I
have
ask?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Konrad.
May I add something? Yes, and I'd like to say that if we really want to change the situation in the society, if we really want to introduce UB, we need to make it really stable. So if we will be treating everyone regardless of the circumstances, yes, in my opinion, it will result in really small support of society for this model of UB. So I think that we need to think about special groups that need special treatment, like we said about widows, veterans, and all that stuff. In other situation, UB will be mechanism that will be introduced only for a while, in my opinion. It won't be stable, and we need to make it stable.
Thank you, Konrad. Alex, do you have a comment? You're muted, Alex. We can't hear you.
Sorry. Here, as a segue to what my colleagues said, I think we're talking about equality versus equity. And I don't underestimate the role of the state in handling finances and everything. But I think if we're talking about universal basic income, this is a combination of private enterprise, you have the state, and you have the non-profits, you have the voluntary sector, you have all the third sectors who should come together and look at it in terms of equity, not equality, because the state is very good at doing equality. And by the way, I was a teenager when the Berlin Wall fell, and I was in the Eastern Bloc at the time, living in the Eastern Bloc at the time, and I know all about so-called equality. But it's not going to work ever with universal basic income. So we should look at we should change the paradigm. That's all I'm saying. Because universal basic income, UBI, was a changing paradigm at a time. And now we have to change even the universal basic income in itself. We have to turn it on its head and make it better to fulfill people's needs. Just my opinion.
Okay, so I will move to my question to you, Alex, if there's no other questions. So if I understand it correctly, the program you described is given to chosen families in an area in Romania. And so in this sense, I understand that it's more an unconditional cash transfer. So it's not universal, so it's not given to everyone in the community. And in this sense, I believe it's not really a basic income. So my question is, in how many people received it in the community? I would be interested. So how many households? And was there a challenge between families that have not received it yet? Others are waiting to be, say, on a list or to be recommended. Were there any negative feelings among families who did not receive this cash?
Right. Very good question. Actually, not at all, because again, another change of paradigm is competition versus emulation. Everybody else in the community tried to emulate the people who were in the program. And we didn't frame it as a universal basic income again for not having a stigma on poverty. And it's just something they deserved. These people are deserving people. And we started, I guess, again, a grassroots levels because we didn't want to waste money. And if the community is not ready for this type of income program, then we can call it universal or not, but it is universal in the sense that deserving recipients are getting all those benefits regardless. But you have
What do you mean by deserving beneficent? I mean, this is also placing a judgment on people, right?
No. When I was ready to get into my PhD program, I got in my PhD program, even if it was 20 years later, because after I graduated university, because I had something to bring to the world. When people understand and work in partnership with an organization or anyone towards a goal, it means to me, metaphorically speaking or philosophically speaking, they are ready for this. We have a lot of homelessness here in Los Angeles, and if someone comes and hands out money or gives them an apartment, a lot of them will say, I do not want to live in this apartment because I can't. They are not ready for this. And it's not passing judgments on people. It's trying to help, but people need to be helped the way they can be helped, the way they understand the help. We cannot give the same amount of money to everybody and expect amazing results. That's why, in my opinion, the 2-year Finnish program, no matter how you take it, to me, it failed equally as it succeeded, because you can get an experiment, you can get a data and say, well, it failed, it succeeded. And this is how people framed it. A lot of people said it failed, a lot of people said it succeeded, the same program. And yes, it failed and succeeded at the same time. But if we want a program that succeeds all the time, then we have to look at it differently. And by universal, it means universal is an aspirational word in my mind, that we have to bring everyone in this, but we can't right now because not everybody's ready, not the organizations, not the states, even the countries are not ready. If you see that map with different colors, it shows very clearly that countries are not ready for the universal basic income. And Iran is just spending the money on oil for political reasons. It's not they want everybody, and that's universal, by the way. And it's to me, it's not a success. So we
the
really
program in Iran was stopped. In fact, the program in Iran was stopped, and it at the end, the value of the cash transfer, the amount was diluted because of inflation.
Sure.
And I will humbly invite you not to directly dismiss a program. Say, as your comment said, in Iran, where you're saying recipients were smoking or consuming illicit goods. It's a big assumption to say that the consumption of illicit goods is due to the basic income. The consumption of drugs is not due to a basic income. It's a social problem that has many different causes. And
it goes to the inner structures developed by people. I have friends who participated in this program as volunteers, and they were very disappointed. They went with high hopes. What I'm saying is that we can do better. I'm not saying the program was bad or any program was bad. The Finnish program was good in itself. Any program is good, is a step forward. But if we want to do this universally, we can allocate more resources and come to look at it from more angles than just maybe the state involvement or just the nonprofit involvement. There's so many areas that have to come together for true universal basic income to succeed. That's all I'm saying. All the programs are good because they're a step forward towards our goal. And I think we have the same goal. And there's always things that happen and people don't understand the investment which they can benefit from. And it goes back to education and many other things. I love to talk for us to talk about this for hours, but we can definitely do better. That's all I'm saying.
Thank
And
you,
I'm not
Alex.
passing
I think we
judgment.
can all agree with that. Are there? Yeah, I think we can all agree with that. Are there other questions or comments from people in the room? No questions, no comments. Well, I would like to thank you all very much for taking the time. Alex, for waking up very early to join us. I think these are all quite interesting topics and very informative, and we were learning from each other to sort of move the debate of basic income ahead towards a more just and equal society. Thank you all. I believe we're just on time actually for ending the session. So thank you once again, and perhaps we can stay in touch. Also, we're all having our email addresses. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.